2025 is in the books. 2026 has arrived, and Happy New Year to everyone watching out there. As we start this new year, I want to welcome you in and let you know that WBAG Sports is now on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, you already know that, but if not, make sure you go and check out WBAG AM/FM Sports on YouTube. Give us a like and a subscribe. We could use the support as we try to expand what we're doing around Alamance County in the year 2026. Now, I know we've been a little quiet the past couple weeks, but that doesn't mean we haven't been locked into everything going on around Alamance County. We've got bigger and better sports coverage planned for you in 2026, and this video is just the beginning. Basketball season, as you know, folks, is in full effect, and conference play is about to really heat up. The meat and potatoes of the schedule is on the other side of the holiday break, and as we move into the new year, I wanted to hop on and update everybody on what things look like up to this point, how we got to where we are as we move into the new year around Alamance County. We will talk boys, we'll talk girls, we'll talk a little bit about who to look out for, who some of the sleeper teams may be, of course, who the favorites are moving into the full conference schedule. It's going to be a fun rest of the season along the way. And with that being said, let's get off the bench.
It's time to get off the bench with WBAG Sports, Alamance County's premier sports coverage since 1947.
And welcome once again to WBAG Sports Off the Bench series presented by the good people over at For All Occasions in Burlington. Give them a check out at 3266 South Church Street in Burlington. Once again, they've got everything you need for all your special occasions. I know you're probably sitting around, men specifically, thinking, Christmas is come and gone, the holiday season is over, all that stressful shopping is out of the way. Not so fast. You know Valentine's Day is creeping up. It's right around the corner. Let For All Occasions take the stressful thinking out of shopping this Valentine's Day for you. They've got wine, they've got gift baskets, they've got seasonal decorations, anything you could think of for your special someone, that spouse, that loved one, somebody in your life you just want to pick something up for and make them feel a little extra special. Let For All Occasions take care of it for you. Once again, 3266 South Church Street in Burlington. Tell them WBAG Sports sent you. We thank them for their support. They take care of us. Make sure you go out and take care of them. As I mentioned, welcome into the Off the Bench series. You've seen some of these before. Usually a coach is sitting down with me, but not today. Talked about it in the preview. We're going to go over exactly how we got to where we are right now. Talk a little conference standings. Talk a little bit about what to expect on the other side of the holiday break as the season really kicks into full gear. We're going to start with the ladies' side of things, and we'll jump right into it. Pull the conference standings up on the screen for you there. You can see how things sit. Eastern Alamance leads the way. Southeast, Western, Cummings, Williams, Person, Southern, and then Graham will be there at the bottom, but they do not have a girls team, so it is just a 7-team conference this year for the Mid-Carolina 4, 5, and 6A girls side of things. All 8 schools are competing on the boys' side. Let's take a look at how things break down a little bit, though. We'll start with the team at the top, Eastern Alamance. They sit at number 1 in the conference standings, 2-0 conference record, much like the Stallions of Southeast. But the reason that Eastern is at the top is because of the 145 points they have scored in their first 2 conference games and a total average of 63 points per game through their first 10 games there. An 8-2 overall record on the season as well for Coach LaConda Curry's ladies, and that is due in big part to their defensive efforts as well, giving up just 31 points, 31.9 points per game on the season, and they've just 31 points per game in conference play. In their first conference game, they only allowed 8 points two-person high. Again, this is a defensive first team. They've got 5 girls on the roster averaging at least 3 steals per game, and something that Coach Curry can really hang her hat on as well is that they have yet to drop a road game going into the new year. 3-0 on the road, being led by Rihanna Gregory, Michaela Scott, and Aaliyah Trollinger. All 3 of those girls are scoring double figures for the Lady Eagles. I mentioned they're a defensive first team. They want to be strong on that end of the floor, but they can score the basketball as well. Something that I know this Lady Eagle team is striving for is to be mentioned in the same conversation, in the same echelon, the same tier as the Southeast Alamance, as Western Alamance, the 2 teams in this county who are coming off of state championship seasons last year. Eastern wants to be mentioned in that category, and so far through their first 10 games, it looks like they've got a very competitive chance to do so. It looks like they can compete with the top teams in this conference. We'll get another example of that on January 6th when they travel to Cummings to restart things and get their conference play kicked back off. We'll see how they can do there. But let's move on now to the team that sits second in the conference standings here through the first 2 games, the Southeast Alamance Lady Stallions, one of 2 teams in the county coming off of a state championship victory. They sit in very, very good position coming off of that state championship last year, having not lost a player from the previous roster. Did not have a senior on last year's team, but were still able to manage to pull out the title at the end of the season, and they are picking up this year right where they left off. They've got 62.5 points per game, only allowing 39.5 on the defensive end. They're 13-0 to start the season off, and as you can see, they're 2-0 through the first 2 games of the conference play. They have had 3, in my opinion, 3 real tests throughout to start this season, and they have passed them all with flying colors. A 65-62 victory over North Lincoln, 65-49 victory over Seaforth, a regional championship matchup from last season, and a 75-59 victory over South Central in what was the Central City Classic that took place at Walter Williams High School. So, and the victory at North Lincoln, that is one I think is probably the most impressive. They were down at halftime. They had to battle through some adversity, battle back late in the game, and were able to win that one on a buzzer beater. So that's something Coach Surratt can hang her hat on too, despite the fact that they've come out hot and are 13-0 and are looking to repeat in the state championship. They've already had 3 pretty strong tests. They've already had to overcome some adversity. They're battle tested early in the season. That's something you've got to be excited about if you're a Stallion fan as well. I mentioned last year they did not have any seniors on the roster. They were a young team. This year, that's not the case. They've got seniors, and those seniors are shining brightly early on this season. Shania Paylor, Clara LaChapelle are the 2 senior leaders on this team. Shania Paylor's averaging 12.8 points a game, 4.3 rebounds a game, 5.5 assists per game, and 4.2 steals per game, while LaChapelle adds 9.9 points per game and 8.3 rebounds a game from her as well. Both of these girls are very capable of taking over a game if need be. They can dominate on both ends of the floor, and whenever it is necessary, they tend to do so. Now, those are the 2 senior leaders, but they're also led in scoring by a sophomore, probably the best player on the team, Ariana Johnson. She's coming off a very impressive freshman year where she scored 9.8 points per game, averaged 4 rebounds per game, but has elevated her game to an extremely high level coming into her sophomore year. 17.2 points per game through the first 13, 7.3 rebounds a game, 2.3 assists per game, and over 4 steals per game as well for Ariana. So she has shined brightly, just like the 2 seniors as well. This team has set themselves up with what I call the total package. They're, in my opinion, the Lex Luger for all you 90s wrestling fans out there of this conference. They've got senior leadership. They've got size, speed, a young dynamic star. They have winning experience, and as I mentioned, they are battle-tested not only from last year's state championship run, but from the scheduling and from some of those more difficult games they've had early on in this season They were victorious. They were champions in their own holiday tournament that they hosted over the break, and they've got a tough test coming out of the holiday break as they play against Western Alamance. WBAG Sports will be on scene for that game on January 6th. That's going to be a fun one at Southeast Alamance. We'll move on now to the aforementioned Western Alamance Lady Warriors, the second team in this county coming off of a state championship last year. They won the 3A state championship, Southeast, the 2A state champions. Now it's interesting because they both cannot repeat as they are now both 5A schools due to the new classifications. That's what's put them in the same conference as well. So that adds a little bit of extra flair, a little extra pizzazz, and a little extra meaning to this game coming up on January 6th. Now, Western looks a little bit different than Southeast does. They look like a more traditional, what you would think of a team that just won a state championship. They lost two of their leaders. They lost their two best players, honestly, seniors Allie Sykes and Tina Bowers. They have moved on, but despite dropping their first game of the season, the Warriors have picked up nicely and have started to move on. They have now improved to 7-1 on the season overall, 1-0 in conference play. They're averaging 54.7 points a game, only allowing 36.7. So they have, despite stumbling out of the gate, they have found their footing, picked things up nicely, and looked poised to make a lot of noise in this conference and try to make another deep run as they hope to repeat. They started their season a little bit later than everyone else, only played 8 games so far, but they are 1-0 in conference play, only 1-0 because of the Graham not having a girls team, as I mentioned. Now, this year they are led by senior Reagan Averett. She was part of that state championship winning team last year. They also have another senior in Kanaya Alexander who was on that roster last year. They've got some experience as well, but they rely heavily on sophomore Ava Mitchell, London Harrison, and juniors Emery Webster, as well as Kira Benitez. So that's the main core for this Warriors team going forward. It's going to be interesting to see how they piece things together, the type of chemistry they can develop as they move forward through the conference schedule and move on into the year, trying again to repeat for a second time and win a state championship this year as well. They've gone from old to young this year, as again, they have a lot of sophomores, a lot of juniors, not a lot of seniors. They were heavily laced with that last year, but those young girls do have some big game experience, as a lot of them were returners and are part of that state championship team last year as well. We mentioned they will have a big test with the Stallions on January 6th. Coming up, once again, WBAG Sports will be there for that one. Very excited for that matchup coming up right after the holiday break. Moving on now to the team that sits there in fourth, the Cummings Cavaliers, the first team with a conference loss on this list. Cummings sits at 7-2 overall on the year. A very good start to their season, as well as they're coming off of a 5-14 record last year where they went winless in the non-conference, so they have gotten off to a fast start this year. They started 6-0 before dropping a couple games here before the holiday break, but those 6 wins they started with already surpassed the 5 from last year. They're now at 7 as we come out of this holiday break, so it has been a good year, and I anticipate it's only going to get better. This is a very athletic team. They did drop 2 straight before the break, but they've had some rest. They've had some time to reset. And like I say, I think they're going to make a little bit of noise here in this conference. They're led by Aaliyah Mitchell, Lanaya Johnson, as well as Zalisha Johnson. They're all 3 young, strong players on this team. They're the motor that moves this Lady Cavs team, but they are a very athletic bunch. Like I said, they've already won 7 games on the year, so I think they're a team to certainly watch out for and keep an eye on as they move further into conference play. They're going to try to maybe play spoiler for some of these teams at the top, the Eastern Alamance, the Southeast, the Western Alamance. Maybe they can try and sneak in. They want to be in that upper echelon as well. They play host to Eastern Alamance on January 6th when play starts back up, so a chance to move up and put themselves in that category with one of the teams I think can make some noise and potentially even win this conference against the Eastern Eagles. So it'll be exciting to watch, one of the many exciting matchups coming up on the other side of the holiday break. Moving down the list, we've got the Williams Lady Bulldogs. They sit at 5th place, 0-1 in conference play, 3-4 to start their season off through the first 7 games. They're scoring just 46.7 points per game, giving up 44.1 on the defensive side. So they're looking for some offense, trying to find exactly who it is that's going to make them go. They're an extremely young team, this Lady Bulldogs. They've got 0 seniors on the roster, only 4 juniors throughout the entire roster as well. So they are very young, a little bit inexperienced, you could call it, trying to find their footing and really just form an identity for themselves. They're led right now by point guard Maddie Harris. She's the quarterback. She is the floor general for Coach Jason Cheek and his Lady Bulldog team, while sophomore Malia Scott leads them in scoring. She's averaging 16.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, and just over 2 steals as well. So she has been the anchor on both ends of the floor for Coach Cheek's team so far this year. They got back to action on January 2nd against finishing up the non-conference against Southeast Guilford, but their first conference game after the holiday break is January 6th against Southern Alamance. They'll look to bounce back and get themselves in the win column here in conference play. It's going to be interesting to watch how this young team matures over the season. They're led by a fantastic coach in Coach Jason Cheek, so I know they've got good leadership over there. It's going to be very exciting to watch how he continues to build and develop that team, not only this year, but going forward into the future as well. Final 2 teams on the girls list here you can see are Person and Southern Alamance, both of them sitting at 0-2 in conference play. Person 3-8 overall on the year. The Lady Patriots 1-8 to get things started. So both of these teams struggling to find their footing, exactly who they're going to be as basketball teams going forward. As I mentioned, Person really struggled in a game against Eastern, only scoring 8 points, so they're trying to find their offensive identity. Southern is a very similar situation, just scoring 20.5 points per game through the first 9, so they're trying to figure out exactly who they are as a team as well. But don't sleep on either of these teams. That's not a recipe for success. If you think you're one of the top teams in the conference, you've got to play every game with the same mentality, and so don't be surprised if Person or Southern is able to sneak up on a team sometime this year and pull out a victory and maybe make something happen. That's something to keep an eye on. That's going to wrap up the girls recap. So that is how we sit there and how we have gotten to where we are. Again, Eastern Alamance at the top of the standings right now just because of points scored with a 2-0 record in conference play. Same as Southeast Alamance, Western in third, 1-0 in conference, Cummings 1-1, Williams 0-1, Person and Southern sit at 0-2 in conference play as we move into the new year. Now let's talk about the boys' side of things here. We'll show you exactly how that sits, and as we get into the new year, I promise folks, you're not looking at the football standings. These are basketball, as familiar as they may look right now. We see Williams sits atop of the standings, 2-0 in conference play, 8-1 on the year so far. Western Alamance, Southeast 2-3. Both of those teams are 2-0 in conference play. Person and Eastern at 4-5, 1-1 on the year. Through their first 2 conference games, Cummings, Graham, and Southern bring up the rear, all 3 at 0-2 on the season in conference play. So it's been an interesting start. Some teams off to slow starts, some teams not doing exactly what they thought they would, and then there's been some surprises as well, one of which, in my opinion, is the team that sits at the top of the standings, the Williams Bulldogs. And I'm not necessarily surprised that they're good, but I'm kind of surprised at how good they are. This is a very athletic team. They're a team full of football players, full of conference championship winning football players, and they're translating that success on the gridiron over to the hardwood quite nicely. They're averaging 73.6 points per game, so if you want to round it up, 74 points per game, just allowing 53.5, so they're a strong defensive unit as well, and only one of their 8 wins so far this year has come by less than double digits. That was against Southeast Guilford early on in the season, 71-62, almost a double-digit victory in that one. Now, a common theme you'll hear throughout the year in this conference is youth and young players. This Williams Bulldog team, quite the opposite. They are led by 4 seniors. Colby Elliott, Bubba Sims, Isaiah Long, and Kyrian Fuller are the 4 seniors that really make this team go. Colby Elliott averaging 23.8 points per game, 8 rebounds, just under 3 assists, and is over 3.5 steals per game as well. Bubba Sims, 23 points per game, 10 rebounds a game, 4.4 assists per game, and he is almost at 4 assists, 3.7 to be exact. So those two are, like I say, the two leaders, the two go guys, the two glue guys for this team. Colby Elliott being the more vocal and obviously not veteran, with them both being seniors, but Colby Elliott having been at Williams for longer than Bubba Sims. Bubba having transferred in this year, everyone is a little more familiar with him. They feel like they can kind of lean on Elliott as well as Sims, Isaiah Long, and Fuller, the rest of the seniors on that lineup. Now, Williams does start one freshman, Robert Davis, or at least they started him for a game where WBAG Sports was on scene, so we know they have some youth there, and he's a very athletic guy as well. That's what this team relies on, their athleticism. They have some length, but they're not the longest or the biggest team, but they are fast, they are quick, and they play really, really good defense. Those 3 tools there can take them a long ways here in this conference, and as you see through their first 9 games, they're doing a fantastic job of proving that. They play, again, same as the girls' schedule. They have a game against Southern once they kick their conference schedule back off on January 6th. It'll be interesting to see how they continue to develop. I think they'll be good going on the other side. It's going to be a highly contested conference schedule this year as we continue to progress. The team that sits in second, the Western Alamance Warriors, not the best overall record through their first 7 games, or 8 games. 7 games. Sorry, can't count there. 4-3 overall, but they are 2-0 in conference play. They've gotten wins when it mattered. Another team that's still trying to kind of find their footing here are the Warriors. They're trying to find their identity, and they've done so nicely through those first 2 conference games, but they're not the highest scoring of teams by any means. They are a very good defensive unit, but they're just averaging 58 points per game with giving up 50.5. So that is a winning recipe, if you will, but they're not, again, explosive on the offensive side of the ball just yet. They're still trying to find that dynamic playmaker, who's going to be that leading scorer, who's going to be kind of making things go on the offensive side of the ball. They've got senior leadership and talent, but can they put it together to continue to do so, to overcome some of these tougher teams in the conference play? Jaden Jones, Jakari Summers, Matthew Huffman, guys like that, how are they going to be able to bond together and form some chemistry and find some offense as they continue to move through conference play? And we get to find out just how figured out they have things as we move. As soon as they come back from break, they have a trip to Southeast Alamance. Again, WBAG Sports will be there. That's also going to be a very exciting game. Both of those 2 teams sit right now 2-0 in conference play, and it's going to be very, very, very fun to watch that one. Both girls and boys, that we're going to be highly contested matchups there between the 2. Speaking of Southeast, we'll move on to the Stallions now, the team sitting right below Western Alamance. They are also 2-0 in conference play, but an 8-3 overall record as they have played 11 games. So they've got the total game advantage over the Warriors in that regard. They're averaging 72.8 points per game, only giving up 60.8 on the defensive side of the ball. And if you had to ask me here, if I was creating something or making it up and giving you a list of favorites, Southeast would be one of the 3 teams I think can win this. The other 2 would be Williams and Eastern Alamance, who we'll get to in just a minute. But I do think that there are 3 teams that I have favorited to win that could win this conference, and Southeast Alamance is absolutely one of them. They're not the youngest team on the floor, but they do only have 3 seniors on the roster, a lot of juniors, a lot of sophomores, and they're a very, very deep squad. Much like Williams, they're hyper athletic, not the longest by any means, but they use their quickness and their defensive aggression to take advantage of some of the other things that the teams don't do as well as they do, despite not being the longest or the tallest or the biggest team. Veteran leader senior Stu Edwards is what makes this team go. He is the straw that stirs this drink. He is a fantastic scorer, but he also does all the little things that a true point guard does as well. He can pass the ball, he can shoot the ball, he can drive the ball. He's a great defender, and he knows he's got good vision on the floor. He knows how to set his guys up and put them in good location to score as well. If Edwards is the ship's captain, then sophomore Donnie Fairley is the first mate of this Stallion team. He's the second leading scorer on the team behind Stu Edwards, and he is built as if he may or may not be wearing shoulder pads at all times. He is a very large human being, and he knows how to use that frame to get around guys and score on the inside as well as the outside. He can jump out of the gym, and something I've said a lot about this entire conference is the second jump of these guys, the quickness they're able to get off the floor the second time with is what's been very impressive, and Fairley is somebody who fits that bill for sure. Another very quality team in this conference, and another reason to be excited for conference play are the Stallions. Again, they have Western Alamance coming to town on January 6th, and that is going to be a thrilling matchup. I know I've said it a bunch, and I'm continuing to repeat it, but that's just how exciting I think that game is going to be. Let's move on now to the team that sits beneath Western Alamance, the Person Rockets. Not an Alamance County team, but they are in the conference. They're scoring 53.4 points per game, giving up just 50.9, so right at 51 points per game. They sit 1-1 in conference play, 7-5 overall on the year to start things off. This is a team we probably know the least about, I'll be honest, but that's because they're not a county team, but they are a very together group. They play well when they are on the floor. I have seen them live in person once, and they have a good, strong communication. They're led by a senior guard, JJ Cash, who knows exactly how to run this offense and this team the way that it needs to be run. They're a strong defensive unit. They've got seniors Kyan Lunsford and junior Tay Winstead, who are able to score the ball both inside and out. So this is a good basketball team. They're not the deepest team by any means. Those three guys that I mentioned there play a lot of minutes throughout the entirety of the game, but they can make some noise. They can break up the Alamance County party in this conference, and they'll continue to try to do so when they come back to action on January 6th as they go to Graham or have a game against Graham. Just a boys' game, remember, as Graham doesn't have a girls' team, but it'll be interesting to see how that one unfolds as Graham tries to get their first conference win and Person looks to put their second one on the board and stay in their spot right there in the middle of the conference at number 4. Underneath the Person Rockets are the Eastern Alamance Eagles. They're sitting at 1-1 in the conference play, 7-2 on the year. They dropped a conference game to Person early in their first conference game. That was a weird one to see. It was a slow slobber knocker, knockdown, drag out, rock fight type of game, if you will. Person was able to come out late at the end there. But this Eagle team is very athletic. I mentioned them earlier. They're one of the 3 teams I think that can win this conference. They're led by Christian Hester, Xavier McPherson. They've got sharpshooters like Hunter Eichman and really, really young, long athletes like Mason Murphy and Jamarius Tony as well. So it's going to be a matter of how is this team going to come together? Can they continue to utilize their athleticism? They have some length here and there in some spots, but much like the rest of the conference, they rely on their defensive prowess and their athletic ability to make other teams uncomfortable, and they have done a very good job of that so far. I think as conference play unfolds, you'll start to see that a lot of teams are sleeping on the Eagles, and they should not be. And that sitting right now in 5th place at 1-1 in the conference obviously does not mean much through the first 2 games. They will continue. They will rise up that standing leaderboard, and Coach Parrish Walker's bunch is going to make some noise. They're going to be hanging around at the end of this season, and they're going to be in the playoffs and be able to make some sort of push into the playoffs as well. They're going to be very exciting to watch. They're led by a guard, Xavier McPherson, who can really run the floor, both ends of it, up and down, offensive and defensive. He is another one of those quarterbacks or floor general type of guys for the Eagles. He doesn't turn the ball over very often, and when he does that, when he runs the offense and he controls it well, the Eagles, they look like a well-oiled machine on that end of the floor, and they have proven that through the first 9 games of the season, again coming out 7-2 so far to start the year. In 6th place so far in the conference sit the Cummings Cavaliers, 0-2 in conference play, 2-6 overall on the season. They're scoring right around 40.4 points per game, giving up 61, so they're not the best defensive team so far through the year. They're struggling out of the gate, losing the first 5 games before they were able to pick up their first victory. I don't think the record necessarily, though, is a great reflection of how good this team can be. I've seen them in person. They're an extremely athletic bunch. They're one of the longer teams in the conference. They've got William Dawson on the inside. He goes 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", depending on what shoes he wears that day. His arms are very long. The length of him is able to disrupt a lot of things on the inside. They've got a guard, Ja Thompson, who is the lead guard on the team. He is a prototypical high school point guard, if you will. Forward Jaden Brisky, he's built like a Mack truck. If you've watched or listened along to any of WBAG Sports football coverage, we talk about him a lot. He, too, is one of those guys who looks like he never really takes off his shoulder pads. That's just the type of frame that he has, and he can get things going on the inside as well. And I mentioned William Dawson, the long, athletic center for this Cavalier team. So they, too, again, that record I don't think is a reflection of how good they are, because as conference play unfolds, I think they'll sneak up on a few teams, test a couple teams, and really be disruptive here throughout the conference schedule. They've got a tough test against Eastern Alamance coming out of the holiday break. We mentioned that, talking about the girls, same schedule there. So we'll move down the list now to the team that's in 7th place, the Graham Red Devils. Again, they just have a boys team, so that's why we're talking about them now. We didn't in the girls. 0-2 in conference play, 4-5 overall on the year. An up and down first 9 games for the Red Devils, scoring 59.7 points per game, giving up 67.4. But when they win, they win, and when they lose so far, they have really lost, if that makes sense. That's how you get a 4-5 record, giving up 8 or 9 more points per game than you're scoring. It's all about the deficits, where they went win-loss through their first 6 games of the year. So again, that just kind of speaks to the up and downs that I was talking about. But they're under a new coach, Justin Cousin, and they're trying to find consistency and consistent as a team, not only, but also consistent help for junior Michael Woods, who's averaging 21 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and almost 4 steals per game for Coach Cousin through the early going of this season. Now, I know if you're familiar with Alamance County, you're probably familiar with the Cousin name when it comes to basketball. So Graham is in very good hands going forwards in terms of who is running and leading that program. They're going to continue to get better. They're going to continue to develop, and it's going to be because of guys like senior Ladario Johnson, who's been Michael Wood's biggest help. He's averaging 9.6 per game, and points, he's averaging 9.3 rebounds per game, so he's almost right at a double-double. So he's been good. Sophomore Malachi Ware is going to be asked to continue to mature quickly throughout this season, and I think that's something he can certainly do. He's shown flashes of being able to be very helpful on both ends of the floor. And again, once this team kind of figures out their identity, gets their feet underneath them, plays a few more basketball games together, they too, I think, can do some things, can sneak up and scare some people here in this conference. They'll be a fun watch all year long. They host Person on January 6th. Wrapping things up, bringing up the tail end of the conference so far, still early on now. Southern Alamance sits at 0-2 in conference play, 3-5 on the year, scoring just 57.3 points per game, giving up 66.8. There again, another team trying to figure out exactly who they are, who they're going to be in this 2025-2026 season, as the conference schedule has come upon them now. They won their first game, but they dropped 4 straight after that. They've gotten 2 wins since. So they're 2-3. They won 2 out of 3 entering the holiday break, so they're figuring things out, it would seem. I've talked with Coach Ryan Epley, and he feels confident about the guys that he's got, the athletes that he's got around him. He knows that it's going to take some time to just kind of formulate a unit. They, again, have only played 8 games to start this season off. They're one of the teams that got their schedule started a little late as well. But as the season progresses, I think they'll continue to improve. They'll continue to get better. Much like Graham, they're struggling to find a second source of offense. Junior Josiah Allen is what makes this train go. He's their leader, but who can kind of step in behind him and be that second fiddle, if you will? Can one of the 3 seniors step into a more offensive role? Can it be a guy like Drayden Brewer or someone else on this roster? That's going to be one of the questions to pay attention to, one of the things to watch for as we continue to progress down through the conference schedule. The Patriots right now sit 1 win away from matching last year's total, a 4-win record last year. They're already 3-5 before the holiday break this year, so that is progress. That means they're moving forwards. Like I said, I think that plus more, or that win, that one extra win plus more are out there, and positive things are on the horizon for this Southern Alamance basketball team. Again, they've got good leadership. They've got a strong coach. They've got some good athletes, some youth around that team. And so they can continue to build and see where they go from there at Southern Alamance. Well, thank you so much for sticking around and watching, folks. That's going to do it for all this episode of Off the Bench here with WBAG Sports. That is where we stand in Alamance County basketball right now, coming out of the holiday break as we move into 2020-26 and get the full entree that is the conference schedule here in Alamance County. I'm Vance Ballard. This has been WBAG Sports Off the Bench series presented to you by For All Occasions. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, smash that subscribe button. We'll catch you next time getting off the bench.